The security room exists in absolute silence, the kind of quiet that swallows sound itself. 11 monitors glow against black walls, each one showing a different corner of the estate: the marble foyer, the library where leather spines catch the light, the kitchen at 2 a.m. with its stainless steel surfaces gleaming like a blade. But on monitor 7, grainy footage plays on a loop. A woman in a soaked coat stands in falling snow on Route 94, the thermometer reading 17 degrees below zero. Her hands move fast, pulling an unconscious man from a burning sedan, the flames licking orange and violent against the December night. The timestamp reads 11:19 p.m., 3 weeks ago exactly. She does not hesitate. She does not scream. She simply drags 210 pounds of dead weight across ice-slick asphalt while the car groans behind her, the metal warping like a living thing dying. The burning car explodes 6 seconds after she clears the roadside. Salvatore Marino stands watching this footage, his frame silhouetted against the monitors. He is 42 years old but carries himself like a man who learned to survive at 17. His suit is charcoal wool, tailored in Milan, the fabric worth more than most people's monthly rent. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, the kind of scar that tells a story nobody lives long enough to hear twice. His knuckles rest on the desk beside a handwritten list, the paper creased from being crumpled in a fist, wet from melted snow. The list belongs to Lena Morgan. She stands beside him now, her body rigid like a statue carved from ice. Her coat is still damp, dripping dark water onto Italian marble that was imported in 1987. She is 28 years old, but something in her face suggests she has lived much longer than that. Her dark hair is pulled back so tight it stretches her temples. Her hands are calloused, the kind of hands that know work, no scrubbing, know the burn of cleaning chemicals. She wears a nanny's uniform under the coat, grey wool pants and a white button-up shirt with a small stain near the collar that no amount of washing will remove. In her right fist, she clutches Noah's asthma inhaler like it is the only real thing in this room. The boy sleeps 3 floors above, in a guest room that costs more per night than she earned in a month at the hotel. His breathing is even now, medicated and safe, something she bought with the last $17 she had saved. Salvatore's voice is granite, each word placed deliberately. You saved my life that night and you did not even know who I was. Lena does not move. She cannot move. The thermometer inside her chest has plummeted below zero. How did you? Oh, her voice trembles like a candle in the wind. I never told anyone I was there. I left before the police came. I left because I was afraid they would ask questions and I could not afford to answer them. By the door, Carlo and Enzo stand in the specific posture of men who have witnessed something unprecedented. They are both in their 50s, both wearing charcoal suits identical to their bosses, both trained in violence across 30 years of loyalty. In 15 years of working for Salvatore Marino, they have never heard him say a woman's first name with that particular gentleness. They have never seen him stand this close to anyone except his sister. Carlo's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Salvatore turns to face her directly. His eyes are the color of storm clouds before lightning breaks. Because I had you watched after that night. Because nobody saves a life without a reason, and I needed to understand what reason a stranger would have for pulling a man from fire. On monitor 4, another camera shifts the scene. This one shows the interior of Marcello's, the candlelit Italian restaurant where Salvatore keeps his private booth. The footage is timestamped 6 hours ago. Derek Collins stands at the bar, his hand deep in the tip jar, fingers moving fast, methodical. His face is the color of raw meat, his chest barrel-shaped, his movements the kind of careless that comes from knowing nobody will stop you. Victoria Mercer stands beside him, laughing, a woman in her late 60s with silver hair pulled into a severe knot and a diamond necklace that catches the light like it is choking her. She is beautiful the way a guillotine is beautiful, sharp and efficient and built for one specific purpose. Victoria touches Derek's arm and whispers something. His laugh echoes through the restaurant. The timestamp shifts. Then advances. Then repeats. Every Thursday for 6 months, the same scene. Same hand in the tip jar. Same whisper. Same laugh. Lena's breath stops like an engine running out of fuel. He fired you because you caught him stealing from the staff, Salvatore says. His fingers move across the desk, touching the list. Each item is written in desperate handwriting, the pen pressing so hard it tore through the paper in 3 places. Medical costs, $3,200. Fire damage deposit, $1,847. Rent arrears, $2,100. Utility bills past due, $1,150. Noah school tuition, $900. Asthma medication, $340. Food. Gas. Everything reduced to numbers that do not add up to anything resembling hope. At the bottom, a sum circled 3 times, $65,000 in 10 days or Noah's custody transfers to a foster home. He destroyed your references, Salvatore continues. His voice does not rise. It does not need to. He told every restaurant in Chicago that you were unstable. That you were unreliable. That you disappeared during shifts. That you stole from the register. All of it a fabrication designed to ensure you would never find employment again. Lena's lips part but no sound emerges. And Victoria Mercer insured it, he says. His hand moves to another monitor. This one shows text messages on Derek's phone, screenshot and enlarged on screen 9. Catherine Mercer to Derek Collins, I have made certain she cannot work anywhere that matters. Every restaurant owner I know has received a call. My name still carries weight in this city. The timestamp on that message is marked 11:55 p.m. the same night Lena pulled him from the car. Salvatore's scarred knuckles rest beside the list. You had $78 in your pocket when your car broke down on that highway. You were freezing. You were desperate. And you still saved a man you did not know. I did not know it was you, Lena whispers. No, he says. But something in you recognized that he needed saving. The security footage on monitor 7 loops again. The car burning. The snow falling. Her hands pulling him free. The explosion occurring and subsiding into smoke and darkness. Behind them, outside the security room, Chicago stretches across December nights like a black mirror. Somewhere out there, Derek Collins counts stolen tips in a hotel room. Somewhere out there, Victoria Mercer pours herself a 3rd glass of wine and congratulates herself on the efficiency of her cruelty. Neither of them knows they are being watched. Neither of them knows what is about to happen. Salvatore turns back to Lena. I have been waiting 3 weeks for the moment to introduce myself properly. I did not expect it to be under these circumstances. But sometimes fate does not offer us choices. Sometimes it simply opens a door and asks if we have the courage to walk through it. The security room goes silent except for the soft hum of the monitors and the sound of snow falling against the windows outside. Lena's fingers grip the asthma inhaler so hard her knuckles turn white. Why are you telling me this? Salvatore steps closer. He moves the way a predator moves, each motion controlled and deliberate. Because you asked a question the night you saved my life, even though you did not speak it out loud. You asked if anyone noticed you. You asked if your suffering mattered. You asked if you were alone. He pauses. The answer to all of those questions is no. You were never alone. And what happened to you was never going to remain invisible. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning to understand how a woman with $78 and a handwritten list found herself standing in a room full of monitors, facing a man who had been watching over her when she did not even know his name. The frozen highway waits in the darkness. The choice that changes everything has not yet been made. But in 3 blocks, an engine stalls. In 6 minutes, a woman will choose to stop. In 10 seconds, everything becomes possible. 3 weeks earlier. November 28th. 11:23 p.m. The highway stretches like a scar across the frozen earth. Lena Morgan sits in the driver's seat of a 2008 Hyundai Elantra, her hands locked on the wheel, her breath fogging the windshield in small clouds. The temperature gauge on the dashboard reads -19 degrees. The fuel gauge reads empty. She has driven past the exit where she was supposed to turn off. She does not remember doing it. The last hour exists in fragments, a traffic light turning red, her checking the bank account on her phone one more time to confirm that the numbers had not changed, the realization that they had not changed because there were no more numbers to change. She had spent them. All of them. The car coughs. Then coughs again. Then dies with a sound like something breaking inside. Lena sits in the silence for 5 full seconds. The wind howls outside, 40 miles per hour or faster, sculpting drifts across the road like the landscape itself is trying to bury everything. The headlights fade to a dim yellow. In the distance, the glow of a rest stop burns against the black, so far away it might be a hallucination. She reaches for her phone. 12% battery. No insurance. The AAA membership expired 6 months ago. She calls the only person she knows who might answer at 11:02 p.m. on a Tuesday in the middle of a winter storm. The phone rings for times before Marcus picks up. Marcus works the overnight shift at St. Mary's Hospital, where he pushes beds and empties waste bins and tries very hard not to notice when patients' families abandon them. His voice comes through the speaker cracked with sleep. "Lena? It is the middle of the night. My car died," she says. Her voice is very small. "I am on Route 94, about 2 miles past the Riverside exit." Marcus, I do not know what to do. He is quiet for a moment. She can hear him moving, the sound of sheets being thrown back, his feet hitting the floor. "The police will come," he says finally. "Call 911. They will send someone." "If I call the police they will find out about Noah," she says. "They will find out I am homeless and they will take him away before the custody hearing even happens." Marcus knows this is true. In Chicago, there are rules about where children can sleep, and a car parked on the shoulder of Route 94 does not qualify. "Call a tow truck," he says. "Pay them when you get where you are going." I do not have money for a tow truck. The silence that follows is the silence of two people who both understand that money was never going to be part of any story about Lena Morgan. "I will drive out," Marcus says. "It will take me 40 minutes from the hospital. Stay in the car. Keep the doors locked. I am calling you right now to keep you company." He hangs up. Her phone immediately buzzes with a FaceTime call. She presses accept and Marcus's face appears on the screen, tired and kind, his skin the color of mahogany, his eyes the color of worry. "Tell me about Noah," he says. "Tell me something good about Noah." She does. She tells him about the way Noah laughed yesterday when she made elephant sounds. She tells him about the drawing Noah made at school, a picture of 2 people holding hands labeled Vivi and me because that is what he calls her. She talks while the wind rocks the car back and forth like something trying to wake her up. Somewhere in the distance, headlights appear. They grow brighter. A black sedan approaches from the direction of the city, moving fast, far too fast for the conditions. It passes her car without slowing. The driver does not see her, or sees her and decides she is not his problem. But then the brake lights go red. The sedan fishtails slightly, corrects, and pulls over about a quarter-mile ahead. The driver emerges into the snow. He is a large man, broad across the shoulders, the kind of man who looks like he knows how to break things. His suit is tailored and expensive. He does not seem to feel the cold. He walks back toward her car. Lena's breath catches. Every lesson she has learned about safety, about avoiding men in expensive suits on frozen highways at midnight, comes rushing back at once. "Do not move," Marcus says through the phone. "I am 2 miles away. Do not." The man reaches her window. He is taller than she thought. His face is scarred and his eyes are the color of stone. He speaks through the glass. "Your car is dead." It is not a question. "Yes," she calls back. "My friend is coming. I am okay." The man's expression does not change. You are not okay. It is 19 degrees below zero and you have been sitting here for 7 minutes with the engine off. Your core temperature is dropping. In another 20 minutes, you will experience confusion followed by loss of consciousness. He opens the car door. She should not let him. Every cell in her body is screaming that she should not let him. But his voice is not cruel. It is simply stating facts. Push the seat back, he says. Move to the passenger side. She does not move. I am Salvatore Marino, he says. You can call the Chicago Police Department right now and ask them if I am someone who kidnaps women from highways. You can verify my identity before you do anything. But in the time you spend verifying, your body temperature will continue to drop. So either get in the car or sit here and freeze. Those are your options. She thinks of Noah sleeping somewhere warm, in a foster home, forgetting her name. She moves. The car is black leather inside, warm, the engine running and the heat blasting against her face like a gift. The dashboard displays the outside temperature, -19 degrees, dropping. Salvatore drives toward the city without speaking. The silence is not uncomfortable. It is the silence of two people who understand that some moments do not require words. After 10 minutes, she speaks. Thank you. Where were you going? He asks. Nowhere, she says. Everywhere. Away. He nods like this makes perfect sense. What is your name? Lena Morgan. He glances at her for just 1 second, a glance so brief she almost misses it. But something in that glance changes the way the air moves between them. I am going to take you somewhere safe, he says. And then I am going to find out who hurt you badly enough to send you driving into a winter storm with no plan and no money and a child waiting for you somewhere in the city. Lena starts to cry. 36 hours earlier, on a highway that belonged to no one and everyone, Lena Morgan sat behind the steering wheel of a 1997 Honda Civic with a dead battery and a child who could not breathe properly. The November wind screamed through the window seal she had patched with duct tape 3 months ago, a temporary fix that had somehow held until now, held until this moment when holding anything together felt impossible. Noah huddled in the back seat, wrapped in her coat, his small body shaking with a cold and something worse, the wheeze in his lungs that meant his inhaler was almost empty, that the asthma medication she could not afford was running lower than her hope. The ignition clicked. Dead. She turned the key again. Click. Again. Click. 7 times she turned that key and 7 times the battery responded with nothing but a hollow sound like a dying animal. The dashboard showed the outside temperature, -12 degrees and dropping, the wind chill pushing it lower every second, into the range where skin freezes in minutes, where survival becomes mathematics. She had $78 in her pocket. 3 20s, 1 10, 1 5, 3 1s. She counted them the way some people count prayers. In her purse lay a handwritten list of debts that grew longer every day, each line a small suffocation. For $1,200 from the fire that consumed her apartment 3 weeks ago, the fire that started in the unit below hers and took everything she owned except Noah and the clothes on their backs. $8,300 in medical bills for asthma treatments and hospital visits. And the number that haunted her more than sleep would allow, $52,500 more, the amount she needed in exactly 10 days, or the state would take Noah from her custody forever. The people she had nannied for, the Hendersons, had fired her when their house sold. No warning, no severance, no legal claim from her on the boy she had raised since he was 6 weeks old. He called her Mama. He had never called anyone else Mama. But the paperwork did not say Mama. The paperwork said live-in employee without custodial rights, which meant nothing in the way of protection. She stepped out of the car into wind that moved like a blade wrapped in ice. The highway stretched empty in both directions, Route 94 west of the city, no shelter, no lights except the one she could see in the distance maybe a mile away. She wrapped Noah in everything she had, her coat, his coat, the emergency blanket from the glove compartment that was not even warm enough to stop a child shivering. His lips were already turning pale, the blue starting at the edges. The car would not start. She could not walk a mile in this cold with a child. She could not call anyone because her phone had died 2 days ago and she could not afford to charge it, could not afford the electricity bill that kept climbing higher. She had 2 choices: sit in the car and let hypothermia come slowly, or stand in the wind and let it come faster. There were no other choices. Then headlights appeared in the distance. 3 sets of them moving in formation, black SUVs cutting through the darkness like sharks approaching something wounded in the water. The vehicles slowed as they approached her, the lead one stopping first. She did not move. Every instinct screaming from her bones told her to run, to hide, to do anything but stand there and let 3 black vehicles surrounded by men in expensive suits pull up beside her son. Carlo sat in the passenger seat of the lead SUV. His hand moved to the weapon at his ribs, a movement so automatic it required no thought. In the back seat of that same vehicle, Enzo's eyes narrowed as he studied the woman and the child, his mind running calculations about threat level, about whether this was some kind of setup or trap. Enzo reached for his radio. The receiver crackled with static. "Boss," Enzo said, his voice steady but with an edge underneath it, "there is a woman with a kid on the shoulder. Temperature is dropping. She does not look like she is moving." In the lead SUV, Salvatore Moreno sat in the back seat, his phone displaying a photograph of his sister Isabella. She wore dark glasses and held a white cane, her smile radiant despite the sightlessness that had come to her 3 years ago. The image had been taken at his estate, the one he had wired with hidden cameras after Isabella was nearly kidnapped 6 months before, nearly stolen away by men who thought blindness made her an easy target, made her valuable because she could not see their faces. He had ordered those men dealt with in ways that ensured no other person would ever think such thoughts again. But the photograph on his screen was not what made him look up when Enzo's voice came through the radio. It was something else. It was the name of his sister that Enzo had not said but that Salvatore heard anyway, in the quality of his lieutenant's concern, in the direction of his radio. It was the understanding that somewhere in his empire, someone vulnerable had become visible. He opened the car door. The wind hit him like something solid. His coat was black wool, tailored to fit his shoulders exactly, worth more than this woman's entire annual salary. Frost had already formed on the collar. He stepped onto the highway. Lena Morgan watched him approach. He was tall, maybe 6'1", his frame broad enough that he seemed to cut the wind in half, seemed to create a space where the cold could not reach as fiercely. His hair was dark, silvered at the temples, combed back from a face that held scars, one running from his left eye toward his cheekbone in a thin white line that had healed long ago. His eyes were the color of a storm, gray and heavy and knowing things she did not want known. He did not speak until he was close enough that she could see the fine details of his suit, the quality of fabric that required a different kind of money than the kind she had ever held in her hand. His voice when he spoke was deep and solid like an oath, like something that once spoken could never be unspoken. "You do not have to know me," he said. "But your son needs warmth and you have about 8 minutes before hypothermia sets in. After that, it becomes a medical emergency. After that, he might not survive the ride to the hospital." He paused. "Get in the car." Carlo opened the passenger door. The interior was black leather, heated, the engine running and the air flowing warm like an answer to a prayer as she had stopped praying. She looked at Noah. His lips were blue now, the shaking deeper, moving into the muscle memory of cold that would not let go. She moved. She picked up her son and she moved toward the car and she did the calculation every mother makes in a second, the one where she weighs the danger of a stranger against the certainty of death by exposure. She chose the stranger. She would choose the stranger again. The warmth inside that car hit like a wall of something solid, something that reminded her body it was still capable of feeling pleasure instead of only pain. Salvatore handed her a thermos of coffee, dark and steaming and smelling like something from another world. She wrapped both hands around it and held it like it was the only thing keeping her alive. The convoy moved. Chicago appeared in the distance, lights like a city made of promises that had not been broken yet. Salvatore did not speak. The silence between them was not the silence of strangers. It was the silence of two people who understood that some moments do not require words, that some understanding moves in the space between breathing. After 10 minutes, she spoke. Her voice was trembling like a candle in the wind. "Thank you." He did not turn his head. "Where were you going?" "Away," she said. "Everywhere." "Away." He nodded like this made perfect sense, like he understood that sometimes away was the only direction left that still held the possibility of hope. She did not know that in his coat pocket his phone displayed those hidden cameras, the ones watching his estate, the ones that never stopped recording, catching everything, every shadow, every movement, every moment of his life exposed and documented for his own protection. She did not know that he had cameras everywhere because trust was a luxury that had been burned out of him years ago. The city lights came closer. The wind screamed, but they were inside now, inside warmth and safety that tasted like coffee and smelled like leather and possibility. She did not know what was coming. The warmth of Marcello's wrapped around her like a prayer answered too late to matter. Salvatore guided her past the bar where bottles caught candlelight and threw it across cream-colored walls, past tables where Chicago's careful people ate expensive food and told expensive lies. Her shoes dripped melting snow onto the black and white checkered floor. Nobody looked. At places like this, servants were invisible. The corner booth waited. It always waited for him. Salvatore sat with his back to the wall, a man who understood that safety meant seeing everything approach before it could touch him. His coat, charcoal gray and cut from fabric that cost more than 3 months of her wages, draped across the velvet seat beside him. Carlo and Enzo took positions by the entrance, their shoulders broad as doorways, their eyes moving in the mechanical rhythm of men trained to notice threats. Noah slept against her shoulder, his small weight the only thing keeping her tethered to the moment. Marco, the owner, appeared without being summoned. He was perhaps 60, with silver threading through his dark hair and the careful posture of a man who had learned long ago not to question Salvatore's orders. A small nod passed between them. Minutes later, plates arrived. Pasta with sauce that smelled like garlic and thyme and tradition. Bread still steaming. Soup the color of amber, vegetables floating like promises in the dark broth. Lena's hands trembled as she reached for the bowl. "When did you last eat?" Salvatore asked. She could not remember. The days blurred together into a single long hunger, broken only by the metallic taste of coffee and whatever food remained after customers left the diner. She could not remember her last meal that was not stolen or begged or scraped from a garbage can in the alley behind the restaurant. She fed Noah first. His small fingers wrapped around the spoon. He ate carefully, the way hungry children eat, as if the food might disappear if he did not guard it closely. Only when his bowl was empty did she lift her own spoon to her mouth. The flavor hit like a blade through her chest. Hot. Real. Made by someone who cared about the taste instead of just the calories. She ate slowly, each bite a conversation with a part of herself she had almost forgotten, the part that deserved to be fed, that deserved to taste things. That deserved to exist as more than just a working body. Salvatore watched her the way a general surveys a battlefield, but something had shifted in his expression. Something soft. Something that made Carlo's eyes narrow as he studied his boss from across the room. The door opened. Cold air slipped in, carrying the sound of winter traffic and the smell of exhaust. A man and a woman entered. The man was perhaps 40, with the kind of face that had never learned to be ashamed, pale eyes, thin mouth, expensive suit hanging on a body that had not earned its comfort. Derek Collins. Behind him walked a woman in a white coat trimmed with fur, her blonde hair arranged in the careful way of women who paid someone to arrange it. Catherine Mercer. Her heels clicked against the floor. Conversation shifted around her like water parting for a boat. Lena froze. The spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. Derek laughed at something Catherine said. The sound carried across the restaurant, easy and cruel. That unstable nanny, his voice reached her table. The one who accused me of stealing from the tip jar. She actually thought she could report me. Catherine's laugh was like breaking glass. I made sure no one in the Gold Coast will hire her. Reputation is everything in this business. One word in the right ear and she was finished. Completely finished. No references, no recommendations. Every manager I know understands that she is unreliable. Unstable. A liar who makes up stories. Lena set down the spoon. The warmth of the soup seemed to drain from her body, leaving only ice. Salvatore turned his head. Not quickly. Not dramatically. The movement was precise, calculated, a hunter identifying the source of a sound in tall grass. Who are they? She told him everything. The words came out in fragments, each one burning her mouth. The hotel where she had worked double shifts, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, her feet blistered and bleeding into her shoes. The tips that disappeared from the jar every Thursday. Derek's hands taking money that customers had left for her, money that was supposed to keep her and Noah alive. When she reported it, he had laughed in her face. Called her a thief. Fired her in front of customers and staff, made sure everyone knew she was being dismissed for stealing. Then Catherine had moved through the world with her manicured hands and her social connections, mentioning Lena's name at galas and charity events. Mentioning her instability. Her dishonesty. How unreliable she was, how unsuited to working with children. One word at a time, spoken into the ears of people who controlled every upscale household in Chicago. Lena had become unemployable. 3 weeks later, the fire. A space heater that malfunctioned in her apartment building at 2 a.m. She had pulled Noah from his bed and run. Everything burned. Medical bills from the emergency room followed. Noah's asthma medication cost money she did not have. The foreclosure notice arrived like a death sentence printed on paper. The money you need, Salvatore said. She pulled the handwritten list from her purse. The paper was creased from being folded and unfolded, studied and restudied. $65,000. 10 days, the custody officer had said. In 10 days, if she could not produce the money to prove financial stability, Noah would be taken. Placed in foster care. Distributed to people who would not love him the way she loved him, with every breath, every second, every cell of her body. $65,000 in 10 days. She had $78 in her pocket. Salvatore did not look at the list. He looked at her face. And in that moment, something shifted in his expression, as if a door had opened in a room she did not know existed. Give them to me, he said. Who? Derek Collins. Catherine Mercer. Give me their names and I will make sure they remember why they should have been kind to you. I do not want revenge, she whispered. I want Noah safe. You will have both. Carlo appeared with hot chocolate for Noah, dark and steaming in a small white cup. The boy's eyes widened. He had never been given hot chocolate before. Carlo showed him the security monitors on the wall, 24 screens displaying the interior of the estate, cameras positioned at every entrance, every hallway, every room. Like cartoons, he told Noah, and the boy's small face brightened in a way that broke Lena's heart because it showed her how little kindness he had known. Enzo moved closer to Carlo, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. In 15 years I have never seen him like this. Like what? Carlo asked. Like a man who is done being alone. Salvatore stood and walked to a door hidden behind the paneled wall. Lena followed, leaving Noah with a hot chocolate and the strange kindness of men who moved through the world with guns. The security room was a cathedral of screens. Every surface glowed with footage, the gates, the driveway, the interior hallways, the kitchen. Timestamps scrolled across each feed. Dates and hours marking every moment captured and saved. Salvatore pulled up a file. His fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising gentleness. The timestamp appeared in the corner, 3 weeks ago, 11:36 p.m. Route 94 North. Snow was falling so hard it erased the world beyond 15 feet. A car burned on the shoulder. Orange flames consuming metal and glass. And there, a figure in a blue jacket, small and desperate and moving with the kind of courage that only comes from not understanding the danger. Pulling a man from the driver's seat. Dragging him across ice and snow, away from the car. 20 feet. 30 feet. The gas tank erupted. The figure disappeared into the white static of the storm. "You, Salvatore," said. "You saved my life. You did not know who I was. You did not know what I was. You just did it." Lena stared at the screen. That night returned, the diner shift that had run past midnight, the drive home, seeing the crash, stopping without thinking. A man unconscious in the front seat. Flames spreading across the engine block. The cold burning her fingers. Nothing else mattered except moving him, getting him away from the fire. "I have been looking for you for 3 weeks, Salvatore continued. Every hospital. Every police report. I checked the names of everyone who called 911 that night. I found nothing. Then you appeared on my highway like the answer to a question I did not know how to ask. That does not mean you owe me $65,000, she said. His eyes found hers. Dark eyes. Eyes that had seen things most people never survived seeing. No. But it means I am going to help you. And I am going to destroy the people who hurt you. She backed away. I do not want revenge. I want Noah safe. You will have both. A phone rang. Not Salvatore's personal phone, something heavier, something that carried different weight. Carlo answered, listened, his expression hardening into stone. He approached Salvatore and whispered something that made Salvatore's hand curl into a fist against the desk. When he turned back to Lena, something had changed. The custody hearing, he said. They moved it up. It is now Monday at 9 a.m. 3 days instead of 10. And Catherine Mercer filed a false police report claiming you threatened her. The judge has already seen the report. Lena's legs stopped working. She sat down, not in a chair, but on the floor, her back against the wall. 3 days. $78. Noah sleeping in the other room with hot chocolate on his lips and hope in his eyes. I cannot do this, she said. I cannot do this. Salvatore reached into his coat pocket. He removed his phone and pulled up security footage from Marcello's restaurant. Timestamp, 6 months ago. Derek's hand in the tip jar. Again. 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 Wednesday after Wednesday, Thursday after Thursday, the same motion repeated until it became a rhythm, a habit, a crime committed so many times that it had become casual. Then Catherine's voice, recorded at a charity gala, explaining to a donor how she managed client reputations. How she ruined people. How she had ruined Lena specifically because that girl knew too much, and people like that are dangerous. All of it documented. All of it saved. All of it waiting. Salvatore turned to Carlo. Get the car ready. We are going to visit Derek tonight. I want him to understand what accountability looks like. Lena's voice came out broken. What are you going to do to him? Salvatore looked down at her with eyes like winter. Nothing he has not already done to himself. I am just going to make sure everyone sees it. The engines of the black SUVs rumbled to life in the driveway outside. The sound was like the earth cracking open. Like the world preparing to swallow someone whole. The morning light cut through the frost on the windows like a blade, and Lena Morgan sat on the edge of the guest bed with her hand shaking so badly she could not hold the handwritten list of debts. $78. That was all. $78 and a custody hearing in 6 hours that would decide whether she kept Noah or whether the state took him away. The boy slept beside her, his small chest rising and falling, his inhaler on the nightstand, the expensive one Salvatore's doctor had delivered at midnight, the kind that cost more than she made in a week. In 6 hours, none of that would matter. In 6 hours, a judge would look at Catherine Mercer's false police report and see a girl who threatened a wealthy woman. A girl with nothing. A girl nobody would believe. She thought about the car parked in Salvatore's driveway outside. She could take it. She could wake Noah quietly, slip past the men in black suits who stood like statues in the hallway, and disappear into the Chicago morning. They had maybe $40 in gas money. Maybe enough to reach the Indiana state line before everything fell apart. She could run like she had run her whole life, from apartment to apartment, job to job, always one step ahead of disaster. Her hand reached for her coat hanging on the chair. Then she saw it again. Noah's inhaler. His rescue medication. The thing that kept him alive on the nights when his asthma came like a strangler in the dark. Salvatore had brought 3 bottles. 3. She had never seen 3 bottles of Noah's medication in one place at one time. She sat back down. For the first time in 27 years, Lena Morgan made a choice not to run. She chose to stay. She chose to trust a man whose profession was violence, whose hands had ordered things she could not imagine. She chose because there was nowhere else to go, and because Noah was sleeping, and because sometimes survival meant accepting help from the places you had always been taught to fear. At 4:48 in the morning, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. 3 words, turn on channel 7. She reached for the remote. Her heart had stopped completely, she was certain of it, certain her body had simply ceased all function, and she was now a ghost watching from somewhere just outside her own skin. The screen flickered to life. And there, on every channel, on every news desk in Chicago, was Derek Collins's face. His hand in the tip jar. Again. 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 The timestamp glowing in the corner like an accusation written in light. Wednesday after Wednesday, the same motion, the same stealing, the same casual crime committed so many times it had become invisible. The news anchor's voice was steady and precise. Breaking news, federal investigation into systematic wage theft and organized blacklisting at multiple Chicago establishments. The FBI has filed charges this morning against 2 individuals responsible for what may be the largest coordinated labor crime in the city's history. Lena did not move. She did not breathe. She simply sat there, the remote hanging from her fingers like a stone. Derek's apartment on the screen now. 6:17 a.m., federal agents moving through his door like ghosts. Derek in a t-shirt and boxers, hands behind his head, being read his rights. On live television. On every screen. On the news feeds reaching 200,000 people in the first 3 minutes, 500,000 by 6 o'clock, 1 million by sunrise. Mr. Collins is facing federal charges including racketeering, organized wage theft, and conspiracy. Investigators believe he stole approximately $200,000 from hospitality workers over 3 years. Agents are also serving warrants on his associate, Catherine Mercer, wealthy restaurateur and social figure, who allegedly used her connections to blacklist employees who attempted to report crimes. Catherine Mercer's penthouse. 6:34 a.m. Gold Coast. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The door opening and Catherine standing there in a silk robe the color of champagne, her face still half asleep, still confident, still certain that women like her did not face consequences. The FBI badges. The warrant. Catherine's mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. Her screaming something about her lawyers, about how this was a mistake, about how she knew people, how she was going to ruin them, how nobody did this to Catherine Mercer. They did it anyway. They led her down from her penthouse in handcuffs while neighbors peered from doorways and security cameras captured every single second. Noah woke. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes with his small fists, and looked at Lena's face. "Why are you crying?" His voice was small and confused and absolutely clear. "Are they the bad people?" Lena pulled him against her chest. She could not speak. Her entire body was shaking. "Yes," she finally whispered. "They are the bad people. And they cannot hurt us anymore." The door to the guest room opened. Salvatore Marino stood in the doorway with his phone in one hand, his face carved from stone. He was wearing the same charcoal suit he had worn last night, the same white shirt, the same expression of absolute certainty. Behind him, Marco and Enzo stood in the hallway, both watching their boss with an intensity that suggested they were witnessing something they had never seen before. Salvatore moved into the room. He sat down on the edge of the bed, not next to Lena, but carefully, as if approaching something that might break. His voice when he spoke was quiet and deep like an oath. "It is over. All of it. Derek will spend the next 40 years in federal prison. Catherine will spend the next 25. Every stolen dollar is documented. Every lie is recorded. Everyone knows what they are now." Lena could not find words. There were no words. She had spent 3 weeks preparing for the moment she would lose Noah. She had already said goodbye to him 100 times in the dark nights, already grieved him, already accepted that her life had become a series of escalating failures. Now she sat here with him alive and safe, and the people who had hunted her sitting in handcuffs on live television. "It is not enough to hurt them," Salvatore continued, and something in his eyes had changed, had softened into something that might have been sadness. "I needed everyone to see what they are. I needed the whole city to know that they are not untouchable. I needed you to know." Noah looked at Salvatore with the directness only children possess. "Are you the good man or the bad man?" Salvatore was quiet for a long moment. His jaw tightened. Marco and Enzo exchanged a look neither had seen in 15 years, uncertainty. Confusion. The terrible weight of a question that could not be answered with a simple yes or no. "I am both," Salvatore finally said. "I am the man who did violent things to protect people. That does not make me good. It makes me necessary." Noah nodded as if this made perfect sense. He turned back to Lena. "When is the hearing?" "In 4 hours," she said. "You will not lose me," Noah said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact delivered with the certainty of someone who had already decided how reality would arrange itself. "The judge will see the news. The judge will know they were the bad ones." At 7:52 a.m., Lena walked into the Cook County Courthouse wearing a borrowed dress that fit her properly for the first time in her life. The fabric was soft and expensive and hung like it had been made for her specifically. Salvatore had sent it this morning with a note, "You deserve to be seen." The hallway outside the courtroom was chaos. Reporters swarmed like wasps. Photographers shot pictures. A woman with a microphone tried to push past security. "Ms. Morgan, how does it feel knowing Derek Collins is being prosecuted? Did you know about the FBI investigation?" Lena walked past them without speaking. Carlo was on her left, Enzo on her right, both moving with the casual certainty of men who had cleared 1,000 rooms of obstacles. They parted the crowd like water dividing before a ship. The courtroom was smaller than she expected. The judge was a woman in her 60s with grey hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen too many lies. Catherine Mercer's lawyer was there, looking pale. Derek's lawyer was not there at all. Derek was in custody, unable to attend, watching from a holding cell on a closed-circuit screen while the news of his guilt played behind him on every wall. Lena's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we have new evidence that has come to light in the past 4 hours. The police report filed against my client appears to be part of a larger pattern of retaliation and blacklisting committed by the defendants in the federal case being prosecuted this morning. Furthermore, the witnesses we have brought will testify that my client is a devoted and capable guardian." The judge's eyes moved to Lena. Really moved. Really saw her. Not as a number or a custody case or another broken woman asking for mercy, but as a person. "Ms. Morgan, your son has been with you since infancy." "Yes, Your Honor. He is 5 years old. I have been his sole caregiver since he was born. I have worked every job available to support him. I have kept him safe and healthy and educated. I love him." The judge nodded slowly. She looked at a television monitor that had been brought into the courtroom. Derek's face appeared on the screen, mugshot, timestamp, federal seal. The judge watched the footage of his hand in the tip jar. She watched Catherine Mercer being escorted from her penthouse in handcuffs. She watched the news report detail the theft, the blacklisting, the systematic destruction of people's lives. The false police report filed against you was part of a retaliation scheme. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you have witnesses to your character. Salvatore Moreno stood up. He was the only one in the courtroom who did not look like he belonged there. He was the only one whose suit cost more than most people's cars. He was the only one whose presence made the air seem to compress. Your Honor, I am a businessman in this city. I have known Ms. Morgan for a short time, but I have observed her to be a woman of exceptional integrity and devotion to her child. I would stake my professional reputation on her character. The judge looked at Salvatore with the kind of wariness reserved for men who carried themselves like walking threats. But she did not question him. She did not need to. Everyone in the room understood that whatever Salvatore Moreno staked his reputation on became true. The judge turned back to Lena. Custody is awarded to you. Full and exclusive custody. The false charges are expunged from your record. You are free to go. It happened in a moment. It happened in the space of heartbeats. Lena Morgan went from a woman with $78 and no future to a woman with a son and a courtroom full of people looking at her as if she had survived something that should have destroyed her. Noah ran to her from the gallery. She caught him and held him and made a sound that was not quite crying but close to it, something between joy and devastation and the simple relief of breathing air that had suddenly become safe to breathe. The engines of the black SUVs rumbled to life in the parking garage beneath the courthouse. The sound was like the world settling back into place. Like order being restored. Like a debt being paid in full and a girl who had spent her whole life invisible finally being seen by the city that had tried so hard to erase her. The courtroom doors opened and morning light flooded across the polished floor like water finding its level. Lena Morgan stood at the defense table in a borrowed dress, navy blue, borrowed from Salvatore's secretary, a woman who wore her own clothes like armor. The fabric hung loose on her shoulders. She had lost weight in the past 2 weeks. Not intentionally. Just what happened when your body understood before your mind that survival had narrowed to its thinnest possible point. The judge entered. The courtroom settled into that particular silence that only happens when fate is being decided by someone with a gavel and a law degree. Salvatore sat in the third row. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Lena's car had cost before it broke down on that frozen highway. His black overcoat draped across the chair beside him like a shadow with fabric. Carlo and Enzo occupied the row behind him, stone-faced, their presence alone enough to make the bailiff nervous. The state's attorney stood. He was a thin man with thin arguments. Derek Collins had been arrested the night before, not by police, by federal agents, the evidence of his wage theft and tip skimming broadcast on every news channel in Illinois. His testimony, which had formed the backbone of the state's case against Lena's fitness as a guardian, was now legally worthless. The man was in custody. He was a felon. He was a liar, and everyone in the room knew it. Catherine Mercer was not present. She was in federal custody in a different building, the same building where her victim's fund account was being examined by people in suits who did not care about her charitable foundation or her social standing or the restaurant she had owned. The videos that showed her systematically spreading false reports about Lena, the recorded phone calls where she laughed about making sure Lena would never work again, the financial records showing payments made to hotel managers in exchange for blacklisting a single woman with a sick child, all of it was evidence now. All of it was public record. The state's case collapsed like a house that had been made of nothing but cards and cruelty. The judge looked at Lena. Ms. Morgan, the charges against you have been vacated. The evidence of your character comes from an unexpected source. She turned a piece of paper in her hand. Mr. Salvatore Moreno has submitted a statement to this court. Lena's breath caught. She had not known about this. She had not asked for this. Salvatore rose. He was the only man in the courtroom who looked comfortable standing in front of a judge. He was the only one whose suit cost more than most people's cars. He was the only one whose presence made the air seem to compress like it was being held in a fist. Your Honor, he said, and his voice was deep and solid like an oath carved into stone, I am a businessman in this city. I have known Miss Morgan for a short time, but I have observed her to be a woman of exceptional integrity and devotion to her child. I would stake my professional reputation on her character." The judge looked at Salvatore with the kind of wariness reserved for men who carried themselves like walking threats. But she did not question him. She did not need to. Everyone in the room understood that whatever Salvatore Marino staked his reputation on became true by the simple act of his staking it. "Custody of Noah Morgan is awarded to you, Ms. Morgan," the judge said. "Full and exclusive custody. The false charges are expunged from your record. You are free to go." It happened in a moment. It happened in the space of heartbeats. Noah was in the gallery. He was 6 years old with dark eyes and skin the color of caramel, and he had spent the last 2 weeks in the custody of the state because his mother had been deemed unstable. He had spent those 2 weeks drawing pictures of a fire that had never hurt him and understanding, in the way children understand terrible things, that the world was not as safe as he had believed. He ran to Lena now. She caught him and held him and made a sound that was not quite crying but close to it, something between joy and devastation and the simple relief of breathing air that had suddenly become safe to breathe. His small arms wrapped around her neck. His voice was tiny, muffled against her borrowed blue dress. "Mommy, I knew you would come back. I knew you." The engines of the black SUVs rumbled to life in the parking garage beneath the courthouse. The sound was like the world settling back into place. Like order being restored. Outside, frost melted under morning sun, and Lena found Salvatore waiting by the rear passenger door of the lead vehicle. Noah held her hand. The wind had shifted. It no longer cut like a blade wrapped in ice. It was cold but not cruel. "I did not ask you to do that," Lena said. Her voice was trembling like a candle in the wind. "I know," Salvatore replied. He did not move closer. He gave her space the way a person gives space to something wounded that might bolt. "The judge needed to understand who you are. I simply told the truth." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you do any of this? You do not owe me a life." "You pulled me from a burning car," he said, and his eyes held something that had not been there 3 weeks ago, something like recognition, like the moment when a man realizes the universe has been speaking to him and he has finally learned the language. "You asked nothing in return. You saved me on the worst night of my life. I wanted to save you on yours." Lena looked down at Noah. She looked at the life she nearly lost. She looked at the man who had dismantled her enemies not with violence but with the truth they thought they had buried forever. "I am not part of your world," she whispered. "I do not know how to be." "You do not have to be," Salvatore said. "But you also do not have to disappear." A woman emerged from the second SUV. She was young, perhaps 30, and she moved with a white cane that tapped against the concrete like a heartbeat. A German shepherd walked beside her, harness held in her left hand. When she smiled toward Lena's voice, toward the exact location where a voice had come from. "He has been alone for so long," the woman said. Her voice was lighter than Salvatore's but carried the same gravity. This was Isabella, the sister he had built an empire to protect. "I have only just now learned what he is capable of doing for someone he cares about. Please do not let him go back to it. Back to being alone." Lena understood then. The hidden cameras had not been installed only for protection. They had been proof. Evidence. A record of threats detected, of danger anticipated, of a man who had spent years watching for the moment when the people he loved would be taken from him the way his father had been taken. The cameras had also caught her pulling him from a wreck on the worst night of his life. They had caught the moment that started everything. "I do not know how to trust this," she said to Salvatore, and the words cost her something, the small amount of safety she had built by trusting no one, by closing her heart, by making herself as small as possible. "Neither do I," he replied. "But maybe that is the point." 6 months later, frost returned to Chicago. It gathered on the windows of Salvatore's estate like a second skin. The ground stretched backward toward the tree line, and the house itself was stone and glass and light. Lena stood in what had become her office, though office was perhaps the wrong word for a room where she managed the legitimate operations of Salvatore's real estate company, where she made $42,000 a year, where her name was on the door. Noah was in private school now. His asthma was controlled. He thrived. She had her own apartment, but she spent most weekends here because Isabella had asked her to teach her to bake, and somehow that turned into family dinners and Noah calling Salvatore Uncle Sal and waking up to frost on the windows and a man who built an empire on vengeance learning how to build something softer. The hidden cameras were still there. Salvatore could not turn off the part of him that watched for threats. But now they also caught Noah teaching Isabella to draw by touch, and Lena laughing in the kitchen, and Salvatore's face when he thought no one was looking, unguarded and almost happy. Late one night, Lena found him in the security room. Monitors cast his face in blue light. He was watching the recording from Monitor 7. The footage showed her pulling him from the wreck. The moment that started everything. "I used to think trust was weakness," she said from the doorway. "That letting someone in meant giving them the power to destroy you." He turned. His eyes held hers. "What do you think now?" he asked. "I think we are both terrified," she said, moving toward him. "But I think we are both here anyway." They kissed in front of Monitor 7 while the city lights frosted beyond the windows, and every camera in the house recorded the moment when a man and a woman who had both known darkness learned that rescue was not a single moment but a promise renewed with every dawn. Every day we choose between fear and trust. Between closing ourselves off and opening our hearts. Lena and Salvatore both knew darkness, the kind that comes from loss and betrayal. But they learned something else. Sometimes the cameras we install to protect ourselves capture something unexpected. Not evidence of danger, but proof that we are not alone. If this story moved you, drop a like right now. Share it with someone who needs to remember that trust is not weakness, it is the bravest choice we make. Subscribe because tomorrow we bring you another story about love, justice, and the families we build from broken pieces. Comment below, have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and letting someone in? See you in the next one.